move in front. Gives it to Robert into the corner. Perreault works in front. Robert, the shot scores! René Robert!
The French Connection had so much respect because of their playmaking was probably the strongest in the league then. And Rene was a kind of a leader on that line. He made Gilbert play better and better.
Every time he stepped on the ice, he's going to try to score. He was driven. He brought a lot of energy to that line.
The bigger the game, the bigger the goal. And he had a penchant for that when it mattered, so he was good.
The right point to Robert. He shoots. He scores! Robert from the right point.
Coming to center. Dumps it off the boards in the corner. Robert going after it. He scores! René Robert! And the Sabres win it again in overtime. Off the boards in the corner. Robert!
It is a sad day, and I said it earlier today. The Instigator flag is at half-mast today as we lost a friend, not just a hockey legend, but a friend. Instigators, WGR 550 and MSG. And we put together a tribute to Rene today. We have some of his friends and former teammates. Obviously, we have Danny Gare, definitely one of his closest friends, joining us off the top of the show here. We'll be joined with Don Luce at 11 o'clock, a teammate and friend of Rene's, and obviously the last living member of the French Connection, Gilbert Perreault, will join us at 11:30. So I say good morning to everybody, as it's not the greatest of mornings, as I had the pleasure of getting to know Rene, and I'm going to do my best to not get emotional because he was a wonderful guy, and I loved being around him. I did. I loved being around him. He was... just always a bright light, just always a lot of fun energy with Rene. And even when he wasn't happy and maybe physically hurting on days, he wanted everyone to be happy around him, and he made people feel that way. And good morning to you guys. Rob, you're president of the alumni. I know you have known Rene for many years. Craig, I know you've met Rene many times at Sabre events, but I mean, Rob, you knew him for quite a long time. What were your thoughts when you heard the news just the other day about the heart attack and his condition, but then now knowing
we kind of had an idea what had happened, and listening to family and that of leading up to what ultimately happened. It's just unfortunate in that situation. It was a situation where, here's a guy that was caught off guard and he didn't get a chance to, say goodbyes, and people say goodbyes. And that is highly unfortunate. Rene, as you said, was always wanted to be the life of things. He wanted to be the center of attention because he had an act of pulling people together. He had an act of putting smiles on people's faces. And, he was a guy that I respected for because he wouldn't sugarcoat things. Rene, if you asked Rene a question, he would tell you the truth and exactly how he felt. He wasn't going to tell you, what you wanted to hear or what you needed to hear. He was going to tell you the truth. And being in the position right here running the alumni, there's plenty of times when I would get opinions from guys on the board and, on some kind of a major decision. And then it was like, okay, who I can ask? I'm going to ask Rene. And Rene is going to give me an opinion and an honest one. And, I respected that. I think everybody did. But, Rene was a guy that he did so much. He did so much. He was one of those guys, too, that didn't need the fanfare. He didn't need the, hey, look what I did. And I learned an awful lot from him in that category that, you do things to do things. And I've heard over the years so many times where Rene has done something for a family, an individual, and nobody would ever have known about it unless somebody come out and said it. And I just think that he had the respect of everybody, the players he played with. He played hard, and I never had a chance to see him play the game, but I've heard enough stories that it feels like I was playing with him, and respect for what he had to do. So it's a huge loss, and it's a huge loss not only in our Sabre family, but for his family and for the hockey world, because he's left his stamp. He left his mark out there. He was, Rene ran our alumni association for years, the NHL Alumni Association. He was a big part of getting that going and getting it built up to where it is today. So he's done an awful lot for a lot of guys out there that played the game.
Yeah, you know, here's the thing. I didn't grow up in the Montreal or the Buffalo culture. But from an outsider, a guy that played for the Montreal Canadiens for many years, and me getting to know the greats, you know, the Maurice Richards, the Henri Richards, and the Jean Beliveaus, and you just continue to, you know, talk about those players that came before you. And, you know, coming to Buffalo, I had already known about the French Connection. They're you know, a household name around the hockey community, and I didn't get to get to know Rene like you guys did, but I did have the opportunity at some alumni events, and immediately you realize how special these guys are. And, you know, I was a player, played a long time in the league. I really do feel that I had a really good career, but when you have the opportunity to get around older players that have been great players before you, you can just see the leadership, and they're almost like, I don't even know how to say it. They have something about them that draws you to them. And Rene was one of the alumni that I met. I knew that he was one of the French connections, and just to be around him, to hear him speak, he just exudes something that was special. And you know, always a tough day when you're not only losing you know, a hockey player, okay, you're losing a great hockey player, but you're also losing a much bigger piece of life. You're losing a great person, and that's what's going to affect people the most. So, well, tough day here.
We're talking about the passing of René Robert, not just a Sabre legend on the ice, but a wonderful person off the ice. Very caring and giving in the community, and just a wonderful gentleman. And I bring on one of his closest friends, someone I mentioned the other day that I thought about when I first heard about Rene having the heart attack, was Danny Gare, because I've seen these two together on many occasions, and how they interact and their friendship and their bond. And it's a sad day when you lose a close friend. And, you know, I can't say good morning, Danny, but Danny, thank you for joining us today on such tough circumstances.
Thanks, Petey. And Ribs and Ray, Robbie. I mean, Robbie. It's been a tough couple of days. I've heard some of your comments, and they're all, you know, perfect. And how to describe Rene. You know, about a week ago, I got a call saying that he had a massive heart attack, and it was real difficult because I played golf with him like a month ago, and we talked just about every other day, and I was saying to him, you know, how he was making out. I was heading back to Buffalo to see my kids, and he wanted to get back to see his kids in Toronto, and unfortunately that never happened. But his daughter Melanie and his son Mitch got down there to at least say goodbye to him. So yeah, it's been a tough haul here the last couple of days, but you know, he was just a great person, a special teammate, you know, special friend. And again, I know all of us, our hearts go out to his family and his children.
Tell us about the first time you met him.
The first time I met him? Well, that was back in 1974, Petey, when I went to training camp at St. Catharines. And, you know, it was funny. I was drafted by the Sabres in the second round by Punch Imlach, and I was also drafted by the Winnipeg Jets. And one of the things that by John Ferguson, and the WHA was really trying to get young players to go to their league, and the offer was very similar to what the money-wise that the Sabres made. But I remember playing my junior in Calgary and watching, the first year the Sabres went to the playoffs, and it was amazing to see a young team, take the Canadians to 6 games, and then the fans said, "Thank you, Sabres, thank you, Sabres," and they just stood up for, a standing ovation after they lost Game 6. And I said, "Wow, what a great thing to see and to be in front of." And the big part of it was obviously the French connection, and they had certainly guys like, Jim Schoenfeld and Rick Dudley, and younger guys, Jerry Korab at the time. So that's when I met him. I came to training camp, and I was a bit in awe of Rene and Gilbert and Rico, and almost to a point you wanted to ask them for their autograph. But no, that was the first time, and it was tough because everybody was competing for jobs. I mean, I certainly was, but we gelled as a team that year and went on to making the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time, finals. And Rene was a competitive player, like Rob said. He worked hard. He seemed to. What I enjoyed about him was compete. He hated to lose. He hated to lose, and the bigger the game, the better he played. So, and the other side of it too, I think Razor had a spot on too about the way he came across as this gruff, tough guy, but really he was a pussycat in his heart. I mean, he was just a caring, giving guy, and I just got to know more and more about him when he came down here and moved back to Buffalo when we both became ambassadors. But we got to really spend some great time, and I am going to miss him.
We're talking with Danny Gare here, and we're remembering René Robert, who passed away yesterday at the age of 72. Danny played. How long did you play with him, Danny? I mean, how many years were you guys on the same team together?
8 years, yeah. And then he was traded the year before I was. He was traded to the Colorado Rockies, and it was, he went on to be their first captain, actually, when Don Cherry was the head coach. Don Cherry the great Don Cherry made him the captain, and he had a pretty good year. I think he scored like 28 goals with Colorado, and then I think he went to Toronto after that, and that was towards the tail end of his career, but he had an amazing career here. When you looked at Rene, I mean, I said that he was that final piece of the puzzle for the connection, and he, came as an unknown, really, from Pittsburgh for a very popular player back 2 years before I came, and Eddie Shack. I mean, clear the track. Here comes Shack. But Rene was 23, still very young, and Joe Crozier, I mean, God bless Joe. He found the fit and put them with Gilbert and Rico, and boy, they never looked back. I mean, when you look at his accomplishments, overtime goals, 3 overtime goals, 552 points, and over 500 games, 222 goals. I mean, he was, and the big part too, where he was big. Again, I go to big games where playoffs, in 47 playoff games for the Sabres, he had 22 goals, almost won every other game, and he just rose to the occasion when needed, and they were they were quite a group, those three, and Rico was an outstanding player. I mean, and Gilbert, they were number 1 draft picks, and the first round draft picks, I should say, and Bert was first overall. And then Rene was just like the latecomer, but he was a guy that I think he wanted to be a difference maker. He wanted to win. As I said, he hated to lose. And I really feel, and I say this in all, genuine spirit, that he wanted everybody to be better, and especially the guys on his line. He pushed Gilbert. He pushed Rico. And Rene just had that ability. And I can remember we used to have 3-on-3 practices with Luce and Ramsey and our line against the Connection. And if we beat him, he'd be throwing his stick, breaking his stick. And he'd be pissed off and skate off the ice. But a talented, they're all different talents in their own ways.
Danny, you came to the team in the 74-75 season.
Right.
That was the season that Rene scored 40 goals and 100 points. And I think it was the first player in franchise history to score 100 points that season. That's the first time you got to play with René Robert. What I want to ask is this. When you talk about the French Connection, when you talk about this is a storied line in the NHL, in history, what are the things that they did individually to make that line so successful? Because you can't all be the same type of player.
Right.
Describe what they all did well.
Well, Ribs, and in the game today, I look at it, the one thing that you see nowadays that happened more obviously when I played was lines stayed together for years. Okay. And in the last, 20 years, because of free agency has changed and the different rules around the league, they stayed together. And this line, when Joe Crozier put them together, I mean, Gilbert was the man. I mean, Gilbert, he was, everything as far as he could do anything. He could pick the puck up behind the net and go through 5 guys and score. And then Rico was a guy that just complimented Gilbert, because Gilbert really was, he was the playmaker, and Richard was a shooter. I mean, he could shoot the puck, like anybody I've ever seen in the National Hockey League, and get it away quickly. And he had being a left-handed shot, he could move to the middle and score from anywhere in the top of the circle. But what Rene complimented them was he had both those. He could shoot and he could play make, and he had the desire and the will to become, even a better player, and pushed himself and his line mates and his teammates. So I think the complimentary, getting back to what each of them did, they all had, the ability to score. I think Gilbert, obviously, we talk about his playmaking ability. Rico was a streak shooter, and then Rene had both of those. He could shoot and score. I mean, to get 100 points, I think there's only 5 players in the history of the Sabres that have had 100 points. So that tells you something.
Danny, when you came onto the team, was there I guess, I don't want to say a code, but what do they call it? I'm sorry, but my brain is slipping, but a rite of passage to get acceptance from guys of that stature back then, like Rene and the French Connection and other players, or were they just very welcoming? What was it like back then? Because obviously it was different, right? Because now this guy's here to take a job from one of your buddies.
Yeah, it wasn't easy. Let me put it that way. Remember coming again back to training camp my first year, there were 100 at rookie camp. Then you had to battle through rookie camp to get to the main camp. And then the main camp had 30 players, and they split it up to 25. And the main camp left, to the Sabres when they broke camp into Buffalo. And still, once you made the team, you had to still earn respect and continue it. And don't get me wrong, I had no problem with that and understood it, but there was a process. It definitely was a process until you were accepted. And shit, I can't remember when I was. I mean, I know I scored 20 goals by January. I scored in my first shift, but it was still, you still had to earn it. And that was something that, I had no problem with. But once you did earn it, it was great. With the chemistry we had with those guys in the room for a number of years was outstanding, and the friendships we had and the camaraderie we had. And it was just an amazing thing to be a part of early in your career. And I remember going to the finals that year, my first year, and I thought, this is unbelievable. This is going to happen every year. Well, guess what? It didn't. But we did make the playoffs every year that I played with Rene, and won a couple of conference finals or conference championships. But it was tough back then to get to that mountaintop again.
Danny, I think joining us right now on the show is Danny Gare, and we're remembering René Robert, who passed away yesterday at the age of 72 from a heart attack. He suffered a few days prior. 11 o'clock, Don Luce will join us. 11:30, Gilbert Perreault will join us. Danny, I actually, to be quite honest, I know what I was going to say. You made a point, or you made a very good point when you said, you had a lot of great memories and the camaraderie was amazing. And I believe that sports in general, even nowadays, there's great camaraderie. But, you and I have talked, and I know Rene was also in those conversations as well at tables at golf outings or other events. And I've always felt that players in your era, even before and maybe a little bit after, you may not have made the money that the players make now, but I feel like your memories and friendships are far different and greater. Because you were playing for what I believe to be a much different purpose.
Yeah, I jokingly a little bit, we played for the love of the game. But, at the time, we felt we were paid well. We had a group of guys that stayed together for a long time. We had an unbelievable fan base. I mean, it was crazy. In the old odds, 16,443 every night we played in that building, and the fans were a big part of our journey. I think our time here, and you guys, all three of you guys could have played and really enjoyed that time. I think when we played, because it wasn't for the meek and mild. It was you had to be able to back each other up and maybe stand up for each other at times. And when you won, it was always the best feeling. But these guys and Rene being a big part of that, I'm going to miss the fact that we can't talk about those days. I'm going to miss the fact that I can't golf with him anymore. But his memory will be there forever. And it's just, he was a special guy. And I just, I don't know what else to tell you, but other than my heart again goes out to his children and his family.
Hey, Danny, one thing that really stood out to me over the years was how Rene always never wanted anybody to lose the fact that the road that was paved to our opportunity, and that he always looked out for the guys. He was always that guy that wanted to make sure that guys were taken care of, after the game was over, when they were having issues with things. Rene was always that guy that wanted to make sure that there was nobody left out and everybody was taken care of. And I respect the heck out of him for that. Because a lot of guys don't care. And he went out of his way to make sure that guys were taken care of.
Well
yeah,
said,
and that's what I mean about his heart. He had the big heart. But the other, like you said it earlier, but he did things people had no clue about in his generosity and how he cared for. There was a neighbor of his that lived down in Punta Gorda, and she was 92 years old. And during the pandemic, I heard this from a friend of mine that he would go get her groceries. Every day to go, and then he painted her lanai. He'd walk her dog. Like, it was just, those were just things that Rene did out of his own. And what he did for our alumni, as a president, he was one of the first guys to try to get medical, dental, anything to help the former player out. And he had a huge heart. And I'll tell you a story, Razor, because this will hit home to what type of an individual he was. We always did your Christmas on the 24th giveaway to underprivileged people that you do so well. And I remember going with Rene 3 years ago with the police department, and we stopped and took presents to these people that are that didn't have everything. And I remember one of the little guy didn't get what he thought he was going to get in the present, and it was either a game or something. And on the way out of the door, I see Rene hand his mother $100 bill. Says, "Here, get him the game." And that was, didn't say anything else, just walked out. But that's the type of person he was, and just a generous, loving father, and special teammate, special friend. And I'm gonna, like I said before, I just shocked the hell out of me when this happened, and I'm still reeling from it. But I'm sure you're going to hear from the Donnie Lelouch and Gilbert more stories, but I can't say enough about my friend and how much I'll miss him.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Danny, under the circumstances.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
All right. We'll
Thanks,
be back.
Danny.
We're remembering René Robert here on the Instigators. Don Luce at 11, Gilbert Perreault at 11:30. We'll be back with a little playoff talk. Stick around, more to come.